Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yes. I I love this topic so much because again, it's like any game we're playing. We're doing this with our style too, whether it's like design style, the way we dress,
Hmm.
the way we decorate a space. We're all just kind of doing what we think we're supposed to be doing based on trends, of
Yep.
course. Um, and so I specifically try to separate myself from the version of myself that I think I'm supposed to be, which
Mm.
is really difficult. Most people like can't actually answer this question of identifying who they actually are versus who they were told they're supposed to be. But what I like to do is think back to when I was a kid and ask myself, like, who was I when I was a child before I was influenced and told to be a certain type of person or be a certain type of way? What was I really into when I was a kid that maybe it was unusual, maybe it wasn't, but like what was I really into? What was I attracted to? What were the things I liked doing? What was the things I was like just really into that have stuck with me my whole life?
Mm.
So for me, I was really into like silent actors that were funny. So like people that were known for being like not their funniness wasn't in their words, but usually in their bodies and faces. And I loved that stuff. Like I loved any kind of like actor that was in that space, and always have, still have. My favorite kind of humor has always been physical comedy, people that are just like funny with their bodies and faces. And I've loved that kind of humor, always have. And I was also like really into mimes for some reason when I was a kid, and that stuck with me. And again, that's like another person that's really expressive with
Yeah.
their body and their face. And so that's like really interesting information because I think it's also when you think about those things, you can ask yourself, how have they inspired me to this day? For me, I have always been really expressive with my
Hmm.
face. And I've always loved doing physical art form with my body and like physical activities with my body. And that's definitely informed by that love that I've had for those kinds of people when I was a kid until now. And so you can ask yourself that kind of information. Also, you can ask yourself visually when you look at those things, what are you seeing? Is there like a color palette emerging? Are there certain textures that are emerging? Whenever I went through this exercise and started to compile like just the data of what I was really into when I was a kid until now, it was like clowns and circuses and mimes and physical comedy and like black and white characters that were really expressive with their face. And it did a couple things for me. It helped me to validate what I actually feel like I'm my most inspired self with.
Mm.
So in the past, I had this issue where I would see somebody wearing something and say like, "Oh, I love your brown floral pants. Where'd you get them?" They'd tell me where they got the pants. I'd go get the pants, put them on myself, and feel terrible in the pants. And then, but whenever I looked through that information about what's been inspiring to me my whole life, that's unique to me, that was with me for my whole life, nothing says brown florals.
Yeah.
Everything says like circus color palette and black and white.
Yeah.
And then I went through my closet and put all of the things that were in those color palettes, and I felt instantly so much better. It felt like me. And so it kind of gave me the permission to like let go of the things that have never made any sense for me as an individual and really tune up and embrace the things that do. And in doing so and in like diving really deep into every single point of inspiration that's been around with me my whole life, it's really helped me to understand more about myself and make more decisions that are in my personal best interest that aren't necessarily based on what other people are
Yeah.
wearing or what the trends are. Now I can see somebody wearing something that I like on them or that I like, but I can say, I love that, but it's not for me.
Yeah.
It's for you, and really enjoy that other people are different and have their own unique inspirations that are different from mine.
That is awesome. I've never most people don't do that work. Like that's not something that most people even spend because again, we kind of write off who we were as a kid. I feel like
Oh
oh
yeah,
yeah,
for sure.
that was like a silly like I was just a silly kid. I like fart jokes. Like
Uh-huh.
that's kind of
Uh-huh.
like
Oh yeah.
like all that you like think about. But the exercise of looking back is how long did this whole
Oh
like
yeah.
process of looking back at yourself as a kid, how long did that actually take?
It definitely took like many painful years of slow realizations, and then I realized I was onto something, and then did more intentional work
Oh,
and
nice.
really streamlined it. And then I was like, okay, how do I teach other people to do this and really streamline it?
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was a long period of time of slow realizations. But once I figured it out, I was like, oh my god, this is the key to everything for me. And in thinking about going back to being a kid, I think it's really interesting because we, the work that I do with people is like trying to figure out who you actually are
Mhm.
and how to embrace that and like create a career that's made uniquely for you. But most people don't know, like, who actually am I, because I'm just a product of the world.
Yeah.
So I do think the key is into thinking back when you were a kid, because when you were a child, you were still learning the truths about the world. And so you were truly your most pure self. You like slowly you start to absorb information about like who you're supposed to be,
Hmm.
which might be different from who you actually are. And then slowly we like become more and more conditioned to be just like a boring regular adult. And so I love I love working with kids for that reason, because they know who they are. And if you ask an adult, like, tell me about yourself, like, what's your personality like? What are you like really into right now? It's just so hard for adults to answer. And if you ask kids that, they can answer you so quickly.
Dang.
It's so beautiful. And so I just think it's like the purest expression of self of whenever it's before anybody's told you like who you're supposed to be. You're just living as yourself and enjoying the world. And so I love that, to know what people were into, because everybody is, even as kids, we're all different and we were all really into different things.
Oh yeah.
And especially the ones that stuck with us throughout the rest of our lives. Those are really interesting to me, because it's more likely to stick with you for the remainder of your life and be like actually something that is a core to who you are.
Yeah, that is true. I see it all. Even when I was in high school, I would ask some people like, "What do you want to do?" or "Who do you want to be?" And they're like, "I don't know." And I'm like, it's just it. I know it's hard, but it's just like it's so important. I'd rather live a life of m- not even majority, but like towards the end, I figured it out, and I got to at least spend some time doing the thing I wanted to do. Than like
Yeah.
the other way around, where it's like I get conditioned more and more to like be more of how everybody else is. So yeah, that's a fascinating process, and sounds like it would honestly help a lot of, especially creatives. Because I know a lot of times when I have
Definitely.
people on, people are like, "Well, how did they find their creative style?" And I feel like this goes along with that also. Like,
Yeah, well, also, yeah, it definitely feels like very challenging, because as a creative person, whenever you're, especially like being a designer or an artist, when you're trying to find a style that's unique to you, it really feels like everything's taken.
yes,
And then we're all just looking at Pinterest, and we're all looking at the same inspiration all the time. And so, of course, we all end up making things that look the same.
yeah,
And so it really is a matter of like really looking at yourself. From what I like to do is really just look at the data and make lists of like, who am I actually? What are my personality
mm,
traits? A lot of people don't even know. They have to, you can ask friends. That's what I had to do. Who am I? What are my personality traits? What are my skills? What am I good at? What do I know? And then you can start to put those things to visuals. And all of us, like, we might share personality traits in common. We might share lifelong points of inspiration in common. But when you take all of your personality traits, all of your lifelong points of inspiration, all of your skills, and you put them together, it makes you a person that has like a completely different list of things combined.
yeah.
And so what I'm really interested in is taking all those pieces of that puzzle and translating them to visuals, so you can express your personality, you can showcase your skills, and you can show off your inspiration all in one place through a visual style. And then that way you can have a style that nobody else possibly could.
Yeah,
And it's a big puzzle. It's not easy to figure out,
for
but
sure.
we have the information. It's just figuring out how to actually translate that to visuals. That's the hard part.
Yeah, that's dope. That's actually that when it comes to like, because I do branding work sometimes. That's how I
Yeah.
will like try to create something that's unique. Is it's like
Yeah.
you can't do it with like, all right, penguin. And it's like, well, most people have a penguin, but if I have a penguin with a style, with maybe some colors, and try to smash that together, I'll
Yes.
get something, and the letter B, and you'll get something different in trying to kind of
Exactly.
iterate on those
I
things.
I remember back when I first started doing brand design, I would do that like I just assumed this is what people did, and I'm pretty sure this is true, but maybe I'm wrong. Is I would give my clients like 3 different mood boards at the beginning of the
For
project,
sure.
and I'd go, "Okay, pick one."
Yeah.
And they would always say, "Well, we like parts this part of this mood
Mm-hmm.
board, this part of the other one, and then some from the third one." And I'd always be frustrated because I said, "Oh, I asked you to pick one, but you've just picked pieces from all 3. What am I supposed to do? Those things don't go together." And then I realized, oh, that's how you design something that looks unlike anything else that exists. You put things together that people are not putting together. And that's kind of how I ended up realizing that we can all do this with ourselves. Is we're a bunch of, yeah, like we said earlier, we're not just one thing.
Oh
We're
yeah.
all complicated. We're all different things. Stylistically and thematically, we as individuals don't go together, but we do. We exist. We're all so many things. So if we can put all those things together visually, then we can have a style unlike anyone else's.
Dang. Yeah, the mood board thing, I have always gotten frustrated, and now that makes more sense.
Yeah, it's like, I know it is. It's like, couldn't you have just done what I asked and picked one vibe, and then we did the vibe, and then we're done?
Yeah, that's it. We just want to be we want to be do what I say. Like and that's
Yeah,
that's a
do what I
vibe that
say.
I had like the wrong energy when I first started doing branding work. And I don't know if it's like everybody, but my energy was very much like, hey, you should do my ego knows what you should be doing. And you should do everything I say you should be
Yeah,
doing.
I'm the
Yeah,
professional.
I'm the professional. But now it's like, okay, I'll take you where you're at. We can talk through it. Let's figure out what works the best. And that's the energy that I have now. More like mother. I feel like that's how my wife is with my son. It's like, I know you're freaking out right now, but here's the juice and we can talk about it. um, so yeah, that is perfect.